Hello, good evening everyone. I hope all of you can hear me. It's always a pleasure to interact with young people, especially regarding their career guidance. Because when I am interacting with you people, I see myself how I was back then when I was in my school, what to do after schooling, and I know how should we be progressing, whom should we be approaching, and what are the careers that we should rather be looking at based on our interest or based on our academic background and so on and so forth, right? No, see, when Arun first approached me, like, Mr. Reddy, can you take a session on career in civil services? The first thought that came to my mind was like, what should I tell the students? Like, this is the biggest, what we can say is the issue, or this kind of, myth, or we can say it's a kind of an enigma, right? Most of the people, you see the civil servants, it's not just the people who get through IAS or IPS or other things. The civil servant means any government employee. You come across the government employees, or you will be interacting with them at least once in a month, or kind of, even if you are a student, you may not be interacting, but your parents will be. So you'll be interacting with them quite often. At the same time, we do not know what exactly they are doing. Unlike, when you go to when you go to a company, let's say if I take a software company, you know that what a software engineer does. And if you go to a marketing company like HUL or P&G, whatever it is, you know what they are doing. A bank employee, you know what they do. You may not interact with them, but the information is in public. Whereas with the government services, you see all of them every day, but what exactly they are doing, how are they contributing to the society, what is the nature of their role, you may not be coming across. You may not be knowing it. So then I thought, for you people, I should first tell you about how exactly career in civil services looks like, and what should you be looking forward to when eventually if you decide to go into civil services, right? Firstly, I will tell you, let's take the names. You must have heard of Ajit Doval, who is our National Security Advisor. You must have heard our Minister of External Affairs, Sri S. Jaishankar. You must have heard of, T.N. Seshan, who was ex-cabinet secretary. Who are these people? These are the people who come from these civil services. If you see T.N. Seshan, I just give you one example. Before he took over as election commissioner in the last decade of last century, that is from 1990, between 1990 to 2000, no one had ever heard of this election commission. People knew that there is an election commission and it had some functions, but all of them only thought that, okay, this is there only for releasing the dates, doing the counting, and so on and so forth. What were its powers? How can it influences the election? How can it make sure that the election process is fair and transparent? No one were actually aware of that. But when Mr. T.N. Seshan took over that is when people realized what exactly election commission is, what exactly the powers of the commission are, and how it can influence the world. Not the world, the country in this particular instance. Now take the case of Mr. S. Jaishankar. He was an Indian Foreign Service officer. He served as, the Indian representative ambassador in various countries, including China, Russia, and also US. And once he was done with that, his work was so good that the government of the day was inspired by his work, and he was offered External Affairs Ministry post. And now you look at Ajit Doval. He was an Indian Police Service officer. Now he worked in various capacities, obviously, as a Indian Police Service. He worked as an SP, DIG, and so on and so forth. Just look at this. When he was a part of Indian Police Service, he infiltrated into one of the extremist outfits that was based out of Northeast. He worked as a member, he was working as one of the members of that extremist outfit. And in 2 to 3 years, he had converted out of the top leadership, he had converted 40 to 50% of the top leadership towards that. He made them pro-administration. That means then the entire movement got weakened, and eventually that organization was dissolved, and all of them came over to the mainstream and also joined politics. That's the kind of the work Ajit Doval had put in, Sri Ajit Doval sir had put in. That is why he was offered National Security Advisor post. He was a director of IB, that is Intelligence Bureau, which collects intelligence and also, make sure that the country is free from any sort of external threat and so on. That is the work that civil servants do. I have just given you 3-4 examples, right? There are quite a few other examples, but obviously lack of time constraint, I cannot mention all of these. Now you understand where they started and where they have reached. And this is precisely the reason why we always see that the civil servants and civil services are at the forefront of the government, or at the forefront of the any problem you take, any success or failure, it is the civil servants who are mainly responsible. That is why you see there is so much criticism on civil servants. Yes, people face that, but also eventually the policies are executed, and in some cases the policies are framed by the civil servants. Now you see Dr. K. Vijay Kumar. He was in Jammu. He was advisor to the governor. Such senior position and such sort of the immensely powerful and influential position he was holding. Advising governor to Jammu and Kashmir before it was made a union territory is not a small thing. That is why by now you can understand, or you can imagine what sort of work they must have put in to reach that position. And where did they start? They started at the same level as we did. That is, they got into Indian administrative service or police service or foreign service or various other services. You must have heard of name of Ashok Khemka, who was an Indian Forest Service officer. He was famously quoted in all the anecdotes like he was the person with highest transfers. He had some 45 transfers in years 25 or 20, almost 30 years of service, which means one transfer every 6 months. Can you even imagine that? That sort of work, some people liked his work, some people did not like his work, fine enough. But he was doing his own work. Even now, he holds so much respect among the cadres, both among the politicians and also the public. That is why he is one of the most celebrated Indian Forest Service officers. My dear students, this is what you will be getting into. These are the services, that is what you will be getting into once you clear the civil services. Now, the next thing that comes, why are these people given so much importance? Why are these people, given command so much respect? Some people demand that respect, but most of the people command that respect because of the nature of work they do. For instance, let me take a case of an Indian administrative service and Indian police service, because most of us are familiar with this. So I am just into this. Where there are various other services, I will give it to them. I will give it to you after some time. I will explain that to you. If you understand, let's take in India this geographically for administrative convenience. It is divided into states, and the states are further divided into districts. A district's population can be anywhere between 7 lakhs, around 5 to 7 lakhs to 30 lakhs, around 30 to 35 lakhs, depending on the state or depending on the circumstance. Now, an Indian administrative service officer will be holding that district. That means literally around 30 lakh population as a district magistrate. An Indian police service officer will be having the responsibility over that entire district for the entire law and order, anything that is related to law and order for that 30 lakh people. You just close your eyes and imagine a person responsible for the law and order, or the person responsible for the development of 30 lakh people. Can you even fathom that, what kind of responsibility that has been, put on that particular person? And that is why you see that power, you see that respect among the people. You just imagine, not exactly controlling, but are shaping the lives of 30 lakh people. Do you think, can you even imagine, how bigger the task would be? What sort of metal or what sort of qualities that person has to be imbibed with, or has to be nurtured in that particular person? And that is why people look up to you. Once you get into civil services, why people look up to you, why people command that respect and status in the society is because of that. You take any famous schemes, you must have heard of NREGS, that is the National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, or you take RTI, or various other things, various schemes, developmental activities. Behind every initiative, there is so much of bureaucracy, there is so much of civil servants' hard work that has been put in. That is why, my dear friends, you will see that respect among the people. Anything that happens, you see, the other reason why the civil servants command that respect is not just because they are controlling a large chunk of population. It is because of the nature of work that they are doing. By nature of work, I mean, you take any developmental activity that has to be implemented at the district level by the district collector. Let us say there is a sort of a bridge is being conducted or a dam is being conducted across a river, a multi-purpose project that has to be formulated at the district level and then it goes to higher up. And eventually it will be executed by the district administration. Same is the case of the, in law and order situation. If you consider there is a case of rape and murder, there is a case of murder or like dacoity, whatever that you call it as, and eventually it is the district SP, that is superintendent of police, who is responsible for this. Yes, if there is a problem, he will be taking the blame. He or she has to take the blame because he or she was responsible for that. That is why you command that respect. Now, see, when you consider this, these are just some of the examples that I wanted to give you to make you realize that what is the career that you are aspiring for. If I consider my case, I got graduated in BSc Mathematics from Sri Venkateswara University, Tirupati. That is the Seven Hills, the Lord of the Seven Hills. That's where I graduated from. Then I went on to IIM Kolkata. I pursued my MBA Finance. I worked in a bank. I was getting very good salary. Make no mistake that there was no problem with my salary or my career prospects when I passed out of my IIM. This back in 2010, I was getting more than 1 lakh per month for Indian people. I think most of you can understand what this 1 lakh rupees is 0.1 million if I want to convert that into in terms of million, right? That is per month you are getting 1 lakh rupees in India. That was 10 years back. So your life it's almost the cream of the cream in terms of corporate sector also. That was not a problem at all. But what was lacking, or what I felt personally, was that I was not exactly connected to where I came from. I come from an agricultural background. My father is a farmer and my mother is a homemaker. When I looked at it and on the nature of job that I was doing, there was completely no match. Yes, I was getting very good salary. My life was good. It was a 5-day week. Saturday and Sunday, go to, that party, enjoy with friends, whatever it is. There was absolutely no problem at all. But then I realized that what else? You are doing this work, it's fine enough, but is it benefiting you directly? Yes, it is benefiting me directly because I was getting paid handsomely for that. But was it benefiting the society at the grassroots level? No, it wasn't. That is when I realized that there needs to be some sort of, meaning in the work that I am doing. I had this dream of civil services in the childhood, but then due to various circumstances in my personal and professional life, that took a backseat. But then I realized once all this was done, then I realized this is the time I have to take charge of my, my career. It is time that I should take charge of my destiny, and that's when I decided to go for civil services. In civil services, whatever the job that you are doing, whatever the services, there are various services that I will show you to in some time. Whatever that you are doing, eventually it is impacting the people at the grassroots level. Yes, your one action can be responsible for benefit or to the detriment of so many people, maybe hundreds, maybe even thousands. So that is why the civil services in India, even today, let me tell you, even today, it is far more respected, far more valuable, far more powerful compared to any other job. I don't say that, that in private sector you don't make a difference, but in private sector to make a difference to the society, you have to be at a very, very higher level. Maybe if you look at a Reliance group in India, or any group, or Vedanta group, or Bharti Mittal, this Mittal group, these things, they can at that level, very executive level, maybe you can make an impact on the society by starting a new venture or starting a new company or a manufacturing unit and so on. But at a lower level, definitely not. And that will happen maybe when you are looking at 40 years or 50 years. But in civil services, right from the day that you get into civil services, you are responsible for at least, especially in administrative and police services and in foreign services, especially in foreign services, if you look at, you are representing the country as such. And if you look at Indian Revenue Service, you are responsible for the collection of money from the corporates, that's the money that they are due to the government. It's a very, very higher level. And that is why these services are more value. And even now, you see most of the students, whether they are from IIMs like me or like IITs, the best institutes in the country in India, and also are people even from like you who are studying in international schools, even those people who are looking up to the civil services, it is because of the nature of the job. And it is because of the satisfaction that you get. You just imagine, I have I've just come across, I'm just quoting examples that I have read in most of the cases, and some examples in my case as well. When a person comes to you that, his or her daughter or son is kidnapped, and if get that kid back to those parents, maybe in 1 or 2 days or is less than that time, that satisfaction or that happiness on the parents' face will give you so much satisfaction that not even 1 lakh rupees or 1 crore rupees, or if I put in your language, not even $1 million will give you that. That is the impact of the work that you are doing, and that is why the impact of civil services on the society is so much, and that is why people aspire to become civil servants. And that is why you see there is so much competition also, and you need to understand, whenever there is competition, there is more competition because it is more valuable. The value of that cannot be measured in terms of any monetary value. I just have a humble submission to make over here, that my salary right now is almost, after 10 years, from 2010 to 2020, it is almost on par. I mean, slightly lesser now, but still that doesn't have any impact on my, on my mind, because I know what I am doing is far more valuable and far more meaningful to the society and to myself than what I was doing back then. And that is why the career in civil services is so much important. So now, having understood the importance of this, now we need to look at what sort of the services that you have. So far I have been mentioning only, 3-4 services that I have mentioned, that is Indian Administrative Service, Indian Police Service, Indian Foreign Service, and Indian Revenue Service. There is another service also, that is Indian Forest Service. People who are responsible for the environmental protection and protection of forests in India, and also making policies in that. Okay. All right. Now you just look at this. When you are appearing for UPSC exam, you are by default appearing for all these services, except for one service, that is Indian Forest Service. Indian Forest Service has a separate exam. Except for that, all the other services are covered in that. I will just quickly read out some of them, which I already read. Administrative Service, Police Service. Then you have Group A services. Among the Group A services, the most coveted service is Indian Foreign Service. You see Indian consulates or embassies in various, Singapore, Dubai, and Nigeria, and various places. These are the institutions which are manned by the Indian Foreign Service personnel at various levels. The senior most leadership comes from Indian Foreign Service. And you have Indian Audit and Account Service, Indian Civil Account Service, Indian Corporate Law Service, Indian Defense Accounts, Indian Ordnance Factory Service. You have Indian Postal Service, Indian Railway Accounts, Indian Trade Service, Indian Revenue Service. You just look at this whole gamut of services, right? You look at Indian Corporate Law Services. Corporate Law Service, it takes care of the corporates, that is establishing of the corporates and what sort of work they are doing, whether they are following, whether they are adhering to the rules and regulations, or whether they are deviating from that. All this is taken care by the Indian corporate law. Now, Indian Revenue Service, this corporate tax, personal income tax, and all this, whether they are paying it correctly, or what sort of, the tweaking in the tax norms that we show, tax rates, and these are taken care by this Revenue Service people. Now, there is another, service which is gaining momentum very fast, is Indian Trade Service. Now, I'm sure you must have come across these, free trade agreements, or you must have at least heard, the people who are in their 11th and 12th, the people who are in 9th and 10th, at least you must have heard, and 11th and 12th people are studying, the students, you must have at least read a couple of articles on them. I'm sure about that. Asian, especially people who are in Singapore, you must have heard about Indian Asian, free trade agreement. These are various sort of things, and these are all decided by this Indian Trade Service people. They decide the terms of the trade from the point of view of our country, that is India, towards the other countries. This is how you decide. This is gaining momentum very fast, because there are so many issues, so many nascent issues that have been developing in trade related aspects. That is why this service has become very, very important. And now you look at the railways. The largest employer probably in the world is Indian Railways. So that is, transporting in a day maybe more than 2 to 3 crores every day, that is being, transporting by the Indian Railways. That is, the railways is also, the senior portion railways is also held by the civil servants. Now you also have defense accounts, defense estates, the properties of the defense, how they are being managed, what are the sort of things that people are doing in this, the defense properties, like the areas that they have, the finances that they are doing, how they are purchasing arms and what sort of prices, and all these are taken care by the Indian Defense Accounts and Estates Services people. Civil accounts, you must have heard of, this audit and accounts. Most of the companies, most of the government organizations have come across this audit and accounts. What sort of whether they are doing perfect auditing or not, are there any problems in their accounts? This is taken care by the IAAS, that is Indian Audit and Account Service people. So, and also there are Group B services. Group B services, you have Armed Force Headquarters, that is Armed Force, you have the headquarters in Delhi, those people will be working there. Then you have DANIX, means the last one, Delhi and Andaman Nicobar Police Services, and also Delhi and Andaman Nicobar Civil Services. These are all separate for the Union Territories. People are all selected by that, for that post also by Civil Service exam only. And Pondicherry Civil Services and Pondicherry Police Services. See, dear students, you must have understood there are so many services in this. It's not just one or two services. Some people, some of them say, sir, I am not very I am not very outgoing person, so I may not be able to interact with people like, what a SP has to do, what a DM has to do. That's fine enough. You have Indian Revenue Services where you can work on a vaccine, but still contribute at the same level or at the same pace as being done by an IAS or IPS officer. Or you can go to an account service wherein you can you can sharpen your acumen, you can sharpen your intellect and also contribute in that. Or you can go to your revenue services, you can go to Indian trade services. If you are interested in, foreign trade, if you are interested in the trade between two countries, exports and imports, fine enough. If you have done your BBA, you are planning to do your BBA, then it's fine enough. It will be helpful in your career. That is how you should look at. When you are looking at your careers, especially the civil services, please do not look at this as only. So you can look at Indian trade services, Indian revenue services, corporate law services. If you are fascinated about these corporates, how the corporates work, what sort of, that organizational structure they have, these are the things that you can opt for these Indian corporate law service. If you want to represent India at various places and then, take the brand India to the other countries, you can look at Indian Foreign Service. That is why it offers you so much, through one exam. I hope by now you can, understand or imagine why this exam has become so prestigious, I would say. That's prestigious is the right word, and it commands so much respect. Why? It is because of this. Because of the diversity of the work, because of the power and the respect that you get in the society. Now, that is why you get so much from this particular examination. Now, having said this, I would just like to move on to the pattern of the examination before I, move on to what sort of preparation strategy. All right. Now, you just look at this. Civil service examination is conducted in 3 phases. That is prelims. From prelims, most of the people are eliminated in prelims, then mains, and then comes the interview, the final stage of selection process. Now, the civil services examination, that's a preliminary examination, it consists of 2 papers. That is one, as you can see over here, preliminary examination. It consists of 2 compulsory papers. That is paper 1, that is on general studies. In general studies, you will have questions on history, geography, economy, polity, science and technology, current affairs, whatever that you read that is needed for a civil servant to understand and appreciate the nature of work that he or she will be doing in future. That is what we will be having it over here. So the first paper comprises of these. That is, it has 100 questions and it gives 200 marks. Each question is of 2 marks and duration of the exam is 2 hours. So out of the 200, that is the paper 1. And paper 2, which is known as CSAT, that is Civil Services Aptitude Test, it is also for 200 marks. But this second paper, CSAT paper, is only qualifying in nature. By qualifying, I mean that you have to get 33%, that is 66 marks out of 200. That's it. And that is the only value. If you are getting 66, fine enough. You will be selected for your mains based on paper 1, that is GS. Out of the 200, whatever the people who scored maximum, they will be selected, provided they have cleared the second paper by scoring 66 or more. I hope I am clear on this one. You just have to get 66 in the second paper so that you are qualified in that paper. That is why it is known as qualifying paper. Whether it is 66 or 166 out of 200 doesn't really matter after. But yeah, if you get less than 66, if you got 65 in paper 2, then you will not be considered for mains, irrespective of what your score is in paper 1. Similarly, if you are scoring 170 or 180 in paper 2, but only 40 or 50 in paper 1, that is general studies, even then you will not be considered because there will be more people ahead of you, right? Now, out of this, whatever the number of people who appeared for the exam, now based on the number of vacancies in that particular year, let us say there are around 1000 vacancies. The number of people who will be selected for mains will be, from prelims to the mains, will be between 1:12 to 1:30. That means if there are 1000 vacancies in 1000 vacancies totally, around 12,000 to 13,000, between 12 to 13,000 people will be selected to mains. I hope I am clear. So now you just understand, every year you will come across that there are around 10 lakh applicants people who have applied, around 5 lakh people are, whatever it is, out of that, only 12 to 13,000 will make it to the mains. And that is why prelims seems to be the toughest stage in this particular examination. More than 90% or 95% of the people are eliminated up before prelims itself. I mean, before mains itself. Now let us come to mains. In mains, what do you have? So that means if you have cleared the mains, looking at the positive side, if you have cleared the mains, you are almost better than 95% of the people who have appeared for the exam. It is that, that is the positive thing, or that is the competitive spirit with which you should be looking at this particular exam. Now, as far as mains exam is concerned, the mains exam has totally 9 papers. Out of 9, 2 are again qualifying papers. By qualifying, I mean, again, you just have to clear that. That is, as you can see there, qualifying papers, paper A and paper B. One paper will be English, that is common to all the people. So all of you have to clear this particular paper, whoever is appearing in the mains. Out of 300, the qualifying mark is 25 to 30% in various years. Maximum will be 30%. So if you are getting 90, fine enough. That will not be considered for your ranking. You just have to qualify that. Similarly, the other qualifying exam is one of the Indian languages. That is from, in my case, I come from Andhra Pradesh, so my qualifying paper was Telugu. Because I come from that land, so I should know my language. And some people who are coming from North India, let's say UP, Bihar or Delhi, for them it may be Hindi. Some people who are coming from Gujarat, it could be Gujarati. From Maharashtra, it could be Marathi. From West Bengal, it could be Bengali. From Orissa, it is Odia. So these are the things. These are the 2 papers. You just have to qualify. That's it. Next, you have, as you can see on the screen, papers to be counted for merit. I told you there are totally 9 papers, out of which 2 are qualifying. So if I leave out the 2, next you have 7 papers. Out of these 7 papers, 5 papers are common for all the students. That is, in 5 papers, what you have is that paper 1 is essay, and paper 2, 3, 4, 5. The 4 papers are general studies. General studies paper 1, general studies paper 2, general studies paper 3, and general studies paper 4. Which means there is 1 essay paper, 4 general studies paper, which makes it totally 5 GS papers. 4 general studies and 1 essay paper. 5 common. That is common for all the people. 5 common papers. So that is 5. And that leaves us with 2 more papers. And that is where the 2 papers are from optional subject. By optional subject, I mean a subject which you are free to choose. You are free to choose any subject among the given set of the optional subjects. You just look at this. The set of optional subjects are agriculture, animal husbandry, anthropology, botany, chemistry, civil engineering, commerce and accountancy, economics, electrical engineering, geography, geology, history, law, management, mathematics, mechanical engineering, medical science, philosophy, physics, political science and international relations, psychology, public administration, sociology, statistics, zoology, and literature of any of one of the Indian languages. You just understand that there is 1 essay paper, 4 general studies paper, which are common to everyone. So no one can claim that I am an expert in this or not, whatever. And look at the optional subjects. There are out of 20, the 26 optional subjects are there. In among the 26 optional subjects, you can choose any one that you like. And this is where your subject depth, or your, we can say your specialization in graduation matters. So now when I am when we move forward, when we, that how should you start your preparation? This is one of the important criteria you can look at. So if you want to choose a particular optional in civil services, maybe this is just an advice, maybe you can think about choosing your graduation in one of these streams. So that might work, because you will be appearing for the examination with this particular option. Or you can choose any other option also. That is, look at this. That is the beauty of civil services, that you need not be a sociology graduate to choose a sociology option. You need not be a Telugu, that Telugu literature student to choose Telugu literature. For example, in my case, I chose Telugu literature as my optional because I had studied in Telugu medium up to 10th standard. I had absolutely no clue about English in up to 10th standard, and that is why I thought my Telugu literature skills would be better. That's why I chose Telugu. I did management. I could have chosen for management. I did BSc Maths. I could have gone for mathematics. So that is the variety, or that is the scope that civil services exam offers for any person to choose one of the options. Now, if you see, out of this, all these compulsory papers, that is essay, 4 general studies paper, and 2 optionals. Optional subject, in optional subject, you have 2 papers, paper 1 and paper. Each of the subject is for 250 marks, as you can see on the screen. Out of, that 250 into 7, that will give you 1750 marks. People, whoever is scoring maximum marks in 1750, they will be called to the interview. In the interview, again, from prelims to the mains, from mains to the interview, people will be taken, from mains to the interview, people will be taken in the ratio of around between 1:2 to 1:3. That is roughly around 1.25 times, something like that. So if there are 1,000 posts, maybe 2,500 people will be selected for the interview. Maybe 2,500 or 2,600 like that. And out of the 2,500 or 2,600, eventually once the interview is done, interview is for 275 marks, and out plus 1750 your marks in the mains exam, and also 275 your marks in the interview stage will be clubbed together, and the ranking will be given. The top 1,000 people will be finally given service selection. And that is how the exam pattern is. I hope this answers most of your queries about the exams, general queries. And one thing that I just wanted to tell you this much: whether it is civil services or any other career that you are choosing, do it with your own passion. Do it because you want to do it, not because someone else is telling you to do it. You might fail in that pursuit, or you might fail miserably in the beginning. Yes, eventually you will be shaping your own destiny. You are responsible for your success or failure. That will give you the confidence, and that will give you the enough courage to face the world. And that is what I want to see in all of you. I just want you to become a better citizens, whether whichever country that you are residing in and wherever you are tuning in from. I just want you to be better citizens, and I want to be courageous people going forward. And I wish you all the best. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure interacting with all of you.